Where's your bandana?
What bandana? Nah, but like, due to personal reasons, like my barber cutting my hair too short, I could not make it with the bandana. However, I do have 2 watches here with me because we are going to be talking about time, about scaling, about business, about investing, about life, about happiness, and about how life ties in with time, because we have Mr. Varun in the house with us today. Thank you so much for being here. He's one of our personal mentors, and right now he's on the show to mentor all of us when we're going to ask him some amazing questions. So thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me. I'm looking forward to this.
Wonderful. All right, I think that let's just dive right into it.
Yeah, sure.
Okay, so Varun, you have been part of many entrepreneurial ventures, family businesses, working in the engineering field, working in many different groups. You have a lot of experience. Could you tell us about your experiences?
Well, of course, there's a long way to go, but let's start. So, I went to school, then university, finished my bachelor's degree, chemical engineering, and halfway through it, I realized that I won't make a good engineer, but I was scoring quite well. And I was like, let's just complete the degree.
Yeah.
The people are good. The degree is good. Education was tough, so that made me tough. And then I got done with it. Then looked for opportunities, but was not getting the right break. And then I would just say the family business got me into it. I did not get into it. The family business got me into it. So I got lucky. And I loved sales and marketing. It started quite early when I was selling drama tickets. When I was acting in my own drama and I was selling the tickets. So that's where the sales started.
Humble beginnings, guys.
Yes. So then it has been great because I think family business gives you a lot of opportunity. It can make you you can take the things in your own direction. So yeah.
Before we get into the nitty-gritties of family business and things like that, I do want to ask you, it's kind of interesting that you were doing really well, and yet you thought that I'm not going to make a good engineer. What was that insight like? Because I'm sure that there are people who are in that position, and it would really benefit them if they would hear this.
I lost interest in engineering halfway through it. So I just felt that I'm not motivated enough to study this anymore, but I was still doing it, and thought about like working in it might get boring.
Alex, from a career perspective.
Yeah. So that was my changing point, and that happens in life, and I think it's important to adjust because you always have to look for the next best thing, right?
Right.
So that's where it came from.
And how did you kind of, I don't know, like a lot of kids, right? They stay fixated on one thing. I want to do business, I want to do business, I want to do business, or I want to do chemistry.
Yep.
It's like a fixation. But how do you, what kind of mindset is it where it's like, okay, if this doesn't go right, I can do this. If that doesn't go right, how do you build that within yourself?
Every day is a new day, and then you also have to learn how to unlearn. Right? I repeat.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
You have to learn how to unlearn. Okay. For example, the first time when I think the first day when I went for a business trip, I was selling underwears, and that was something new, right? I mean, you have to sort of unlearn the whole complexity of what you have studied. You have to go to ground basic because what I actually do right now is more about street smartness, about talking to clients. So it's important to adjust, and obviously you have to know what makes you happy and what doesn't make you happy, and you really should go to the next step once you know that things are not getting you that happiness, perhaps.
You know what? You just brought up a really great topic that we definitely want to dive into. We will 100% ask you about business and all that good stuff. But before that, let's get into street smartness, because all of us know what book smart exactly is. Like you can learn chemistry, you can learn physics and all those equations and how to use them. But what exactly is street smartness, and what are 2 to 3 skills of street smartness that everyone watching this right now needs to build?
And how can they gain that?
Okay. Well, the first easiest thing to get street smart is to get out of your comfort zone. I'll just give an example with it. For example, when I went to India from Thailand for studying in 11th grade, a lot of people asked me that why you're doing this. Why are you going to India? It's not comfortable out there. I said I want to be stronger, because let's admit it, guys, life here is very easy, right?
I love
very
Thailand.
easy.
I love Thailand.
So I was bored when I was in my 9th standard. I had a driver dropping me to school, coming back. Like everything was like just around that Sukhumvit area. Life is too easy, predictable. I wanted some challenge. So I went to Mumbai, where I, stayed in difficult conditions, traveled using the most basic transport systems, didn't have the comfort, had a budget.
Oh, wow.
So I think getting into tough situations really makes you street smart. And then
wait 1 second, Varun. You're talking about this. I think this links up to a lot of kids in university as well, because they're going to be going to new situations. How did you adapt to that situation? How did you, kids that are, fine, like as you said, right, living in Bangkok, going to university, living in dorms, making their own food, like all of that stuff that they've never had to do. How do you How did you adjust? We'll go back to the other points, but I just want to dive into this.
My challenges were different because even though I stayed in a dorm, I did have a hostel food, like you have the canteen.
Yeah,
So
the
I didn't
canteen
have to
stuff,
I didn't have to cook much in India, because in India the food is pretty easily
Yeah,
accessible.
food's not a problem. I feel
Not
like
a
that's
problem.
more towards like people going different comfort
Yes.
zone, I guess.
Yes.
Like the US and things like that. Yeah.
Being tough, really, because the people you meet, the
Oh, yeah.
negotiations you have to do,
Mhm.
that
Oh.
comes to the next important thing. To be street smart, negotiation is important,
Sweet.
right? So not just like being blinded with what's there. I think looking outside the book is basically being street smart, right? Just beyond the bookish knowledge.
Exactly.
Okay, guys, we're gonna do something really, really cool right now. Yeah. Imagine this is an imaginary pen.
Okay.
Varun Bhaiya, could you do me the honor of selling me this pen?
Okay, sure. So, okay, this is one of the best pens because the ink will last long for you. And the best thing about it is that, you don't have to buy new ink. And you know what? It gets really tough when you lose a pen. Guess what? This has a tracker where you can track where your pen is lost. So you
A
can
tracker?
find, yes,
Sweet,
you
okay.
can find the pen if it gets lost.
Wow.
So that means you're investing 20 baht for 10 years because you don't have to refill the ink for 10 years. So why wouldn't it be a great product to buy?
Can I get 1,000 of these? Sure. that was pretty awesome.
I'll make it 9 baht for that.
I see what you're doing.
Nice. That was
So
nice.
so that's what you have to really think out of the box how you can sell the
That
product.
was actually amazing because normally people are like,
No one would think a pen can have a tracker, right?
yeah.
Yeah, that was like the imaginativeness of that was
Yes.
like very on the spot and spontaneous. And I think that's one more sub skill to negotiation.
Because we
spontaneity.
didn't tell Varun about this thing, or just.
Oh yeah, it was just
No.
it's because of my big beautiful brain. No, but yeah, sorry, please go on to the third one.
Well, see, I would say it's a combination of things, right? So yeah, and also life experiences. For example, I took a lot of the experiences what my parents went through, and that really taught me the street smartness because where they have come from are tougher situations. So I tried to live their kind of life because I stayed where they stayed. I did the small things. I traveled the way they traveled.
Oh.
So putting myself into that, uncomfortable situations made me more stronger. That's what it is.
Okay.
Sweet, yeah.
Now, I think I want to go back outside
Mhm.
and into the business. Okay, now a lot of people, they have small bakeries.
Yep.
Small bakeries that they sell they sell cookies, brownies, all of that stuff online, on Lazada, on Instagram. Some people have podcasts. Some wonderful people. Some two wonderful people. Right?
Oh, bet, yeah.
So we have small businesses, but we want to grow it. We want to upscale. We want to make it bigger. So in essence, what is the art of upscaling, and how can you upscale a small business?
Okay. Networking is very important because the more people you know, the stronger people you know. That's when you can get the right, people associated to you. So they can give you the more opportunities. So I think to know the right set of people is important. Let's say, okay, you said a bakery. If a bakery ties up with a celebrity bakery and gets them to try the product and say good things about it, it could sell more bakery products.
Even if
That makes sense,
Even
because
the brownies average.
Yes.
Yeah, because those customers shift to your
Yes.
business due to that networking.
Yes. And then in your case, the podcast situation, it's about the people you have on the audience or essentially the people who are marketing it for you.
Exactly.
For example, do you have any notable friends or friend's friend? It could be it could go on. In LinkedIn, you see the first connection, second connection.
Yeah.
So you have to reach to the third connection, right?
Not sponsored by LinkedIn, by the way. yeah.
Just little heads up.
So I think networking is the most important part of any
Interesting.
scaling up.
Amazing.
And very importantly is, your imagination, manifestation. Manifestation. So you have to sort of daydream about it. You have to imagine, okay, one day I'm interviewing so and so person. This is where I'm doing it. For example, okay, today I'm doing this in Bangkok. One day I will do it in New York. It's just scale, thinking big.
But I have a
And I'm sorry. Would you give us like a routine of how to do that? Because there's a lot of people who say do it before night. Some say do it right when you wake up. How do you go about doing it?
Yeah.
Writing it, thinking about it. Like, what do you do?
Bunch of things. Writing, thinking, I do both. And, obviously, it's good to have a fixated routine. I personally don't yet. But I think it's not about morning or evening. It's about just doing it, making sure you
doing it,
do it.
I have a question though. Sometimes when people, I think we've had this before. Sometimes when some kids or some older people, they have these affirmations and they think, okay, I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna interview this person. I'm gonna go to this big place. It kind of becomes disappointing when they're just slowly growing up. Like they're slowly going to. So how do you kind of respond to
Persist.
that? Yeah.
Okay. It's important also to take baby steps, right? You don't have to essentially think 10 years down the line. You could think smaller steps and you can look at short-term goals. So I think, you have to be true to yourself.
Yes.
For example, if you want to interview someone bigger and better, you don't have to think straight away like really big celebrity. It could be a local celebrity, right? Or things like that. So I think that's where reality
Right.
check is important.
And you mentioned networking. I'm really intrigued to know in your export business at the time when you began and when you joined in, how did you network? How did you go about that? What was your mindset?
Yeah,
What was your approach?
Exactly.
So, okay, for me, initially it started with, of course, knowing my own clients better and, doing like existing client, doing more business with them so that I learn. Then obviously, my alumni network helps a lot.
Yeah.
So you should always, reach out to your seniors, juniors, same batchmate, professors.
Little side notes. Who's the most notable alumni in your school? Because me and Art, we know this. We know the answer to this.
We're fanboys,
Yeah.
guys.
There's
You,
Satya Nadella.
Oh.
Yeah. So my university got really popular after he
Yeah.
became the
Did
CEO.
you ever come back?
Yes, he has. He has come
Probably
for
like speeches and
yes,
stuff
yes,
all
yes,
this,
for
right?
graduation day.
Right,
all
and that is, by the way, the CEO of Microsoft, a
Yes.
dude who, after he joined Microsoft, that company saw exponential growth. Like literally, we're talking, I think, billions, almost trillions of dollars, if I'm not wrong. So that's pretty
Right.
awesome.
Is that it is under some other people as well? There?
There is Rajiv Suri, who is Nokia's CEO.
Oh, wow.
So a lot of
okay.
a lot of people feel that Nokia, okay, the phones are gone. It's a downhill company,
Right,
but
but
that's
it's
not
still
true.
surviving,
No,
right?
it's not surviving. It's doing
It's
really
not.
well because the
Why?
main business
Right.
is networking. They do the internet network systems across regions. So the mobile phone business is really small for them. They didn't really care about it so much.
So they basically diversified.
Yes,
Is
yes,
that
yes.
something like AWS? What AWS did?
Exactly. So they had more sources of revenue, and Nokia is still a very good company.
Amazing.
Yeah, speaking about all of these different things that these top people have managed to do, let's get a bit into how they've managed to do it. What are some skills do you think that come into play, either for the success of a business or just in general, like that you want to give to the youth, share with the youth?
Well, the one skill, the most important skill that the youth should really work on is early investing. Because, okay, do you guys know the formula of compound interest?
Oh, of course, yeah.
Yeah, can you just tell it to the
Sure,
audience?
it's P multiplied by, in the bracket, 1 plus, what was it? It's the rate divided by n, and then it's whole to the power of n times t.
Yeah, so the whole the main thing is the power of n, right? What is n? Is the number of years.
Yeah.
So 2 square is 4. 2 to the power 2 is 4. 2 to the power 3 is 8.
Yes, it's like an exponential
Yes,
curve, yeah.
exactly. So the n is really important. That means if you start early, you have more time.
What is early for you? Like,
As soon as
Yesterday?
like we get gifts, right? We get cash gifts. So start collecting those, and instead of wasting it on something tangible, you could start investing at an early age, because it could be as small as like 500 baht a month.
Oh, yeah.
And that'll make a big difference. So forget about the get rich quick schemes. That really doesn't work. I think it's the investment should always be the most boring way. For example, Warren Buffett's style of investing, which is
Long-term
value investing. And the easiest way to start, I'm giving it away. I'm giving like $1 million advice right away.
All right, guys.
Index funds. Just invest monthly into index funds. You could do it, and the American.
Okay, let's break this down. What is an index fund?
It basically follows the index. What is the index? Index are the top companies of any market. Let's say the top 500 companies of US are known as the S&P 500. You have your Microsoft, Tesla, all the big names that we can think of. Basically, whatever we can look around ourselves. You just invest into them because they are bound to increase.
Right, and if I may add something to that, so basically right now, if you were to invest in all of these 500 companies, you would need a lot of capital. And what index funds do is, they will make the portfolio for you. So even if you invest, say, $10, like 300, 350 baht, you will be able to get a share in all of these different companies,
Absolutely.
which is revolutionary, trust me.
And even if, let's say, from that 5% of the companies are underperforming, they just get out of that list, and then the ones which are below, they come up.
Right.
It's an automatic replacement.
It's
You don't
dynamic.
have to, you don't have to
Dynamic.
put your head around it. The charges are quite low because there's no manager sitting to operate it. There's no management fee.
Then I have to ask, how come everyone isn't doing it? How come I understand that index funds are amazing, right? But there's no such thing as nothing's perfect, right? So
Yes, people, why they're not doing it is because
Slow.
they want thrill.
Yeah, they want get rich
thrill.
quick, right? And this is
but
not.
but they don't realize that it's all about the power n. So if you are spending that number of years, compounding is the keyword over here.
compound interest is basically like an increase in your money value over a period of time.
Absolutely.
And so
Exponential growth.
Exponential growth.
So I think patience is not there with people, and a lot of side distractions. I have also been a victim of it. I've done all kind of wrong investments before, learned it the hard way, lost money. Short-term gain, long-term losses. So you have to really find out. It takes time, and there's a lot of resources out there to educate, which a lot of Warren Buffett is one good example to follow.
Yeah, and just there's something that he said, which was, I'm so sad that I started investing really late. I started investing at the age of 12.
Yep.
Of course, I'm paraphrasing it, but that just shows you the magnitude of when you really should start.
Yes.
Because time is the single most important factor if you're doing this method of investing.
Time equals money. Money equals time.
Hence the 2 watches, guys. See, that was smart. That was smart. See, full circle.
Yeah.
All right. Are there any other skills? Or I had another question as well to ask you.
Investing is there, of course. Your communication and networking, as we have already touched upon. So yeah, I think that's very important for today's youth.
All right.
Any like single tip for sales, like just talking to people, because we have of course talked about negotiation a bit, but any.
Yes, a single tip for sales would again come back to manifestation. Whenever I walk into a client's office, before I walk into it, I have a small diary. I write the X value of US dollar terms that I will generate, or I will try to get there. Because once you have the target, you might reach near it, or you might go more than that. Right?
That is amazing.
So just write it on a piece of paper. Okay, I want to do $50,000 or $100,000, or it could be as small or as big, but you have to be realistic and walk into the room with that.
Okay, guys, that's really awesome. I'm pretty sure, just to understand how significant that was, I'm pretty sure you're not gonna find this sales advice anywhere on the internet, and that is really profound. What Mr. Varun just said. Thank you so much for that. Yeah.
The Wolf of Bangkok.
Yes,
Minus all the tax evasion.
Yeah, no, but like spiritual.
Yeah.
not the other kind.
Okay. I have this question that I want to ask you for a while. You did chemical engineering. You got a degree in chemical engineering. You're doing business. If you could go back, would you still do chemical engineering, or would you maybe do a BBA?
That's a good question.
Is it a regret that you did chemical engineering when you knew you weren't going to become a chemical engineer?
No regrets. I think life is too short to have regrets. Chemical engineering played a big role in my life. It got me
How
friends.
so?
Yeah, because it got me the people, the amazing people that I studied with, my teachers. Using their knowledge, their network. I'm really capitalizing on that. And the fact that the degree was so tough, it taught me the hard way of how to get over the simple things in life. I think you have to be happy in all points of. You have to try and be happy in all points of your life. So that is really important. Rather than chasing something which you might feel might pay you well, I think you should rather choose happiness first.
Okay.
Because if you are happy, you can make more out of it.
How have these engineering sort of mental models helped you in the business world?
Yes.
And that's a question that a lot of people want the answer to.
Can you explain a bit more about the
Sure.
question?
So like people say a lot of Wall Street top investors and things like that, they were engineers before. If you look at Warren Buffett's partner, he did not do business going in. He was like a lawyer or something like that. But a lot of these people were engineering people.
Comp-sci, mechanical,
and,
electrical.
and since you have had a similar background, according to your perspective, why do you think it helps?
Engineering as a degree is a complex degree. That complexity to the way you think, time management also comes into it, right? Because a lot of things to do at a particular time. It's not an easy degree. I think that really helps because you're able to beat up with life or work difficult situations with like, I've done that before. It's quite simple. If I could do that, I can do this.
Oh, nice. Okay, fine.
Yeah.
Okay, that's an interesting take on it.
I actually have something to tell you. So, you spoke about happiness and finding the happiness in the little things and that little anecdote. So, I want to kind of go into this a little bit more. What are your thoughts and guidance on long-term fulfillment? So after one is successful, we've spoken about scaling your business, we've talked about investing, we've driven into these topics, but how do you achieve contentment? I know billionaires that are depressed, but I know people that are not very happy, but they're still content. How do you find the contentment?
Well, if you can have a real smile in your face daily, I think that's what it comes down to. It doesn't come down to how much money you have because, of course, money can, it's not the happiness, it's not the ultimate. So yeah, I think it's about the people you're surrounded with. How are you feeling every day? How many people love you? It's a bit harsh to say this, but how many people will actually be there in your funeral?
Who will cry when you
die? Who will cry when you
yeah?
die? So I think it's important to look beyond the materialistic things. Sometimes you just have to sit back and see like life is awesome. People are struggling or things like that. I'm at least having 3 meals a day. I'm sitting with my family. I have a good bunch of friends. I can enjoy once in a while. So I think it's important to look within.
Yeah, I feel the crux of what you mentioned over here is sort of lowering your expectations. Of course, keeping the ambitions high, like from a materialistic point of view, but then be a bit detached and keep them low. As in, am I being fed? Do I have people that love me? Awesome, so I'm happy.
Yes, and giving it back to the society is really important. That increases your happiness.
Okay.
Being part of the society.
I have a question. Suppose some days, I know this might be a bit like a narcissistic point of view, but some days you wake up and you're not feeling good. Some days you wake up and your head is hurting. Some days you wake up and you're just mad. You're like, maybe last night an argument, maybe a task is not done. You're angry. How do you respond to that anger? How do you respond to that day where you're not feeling like it, but you still are positive?
First of all, you have to see, okay, something if it's making you angry or stressing it out, so complete that particular task, right? If something, it can be completed, if it's in your control. If it's beyond your control, then you really cannot do anything about it. You just have to sort of replace the negative with the positives. And you have to take a backseat and say that, okay, this did not happen, so what? Did it affect me? Am I hurt? Will I die? What's the worst that can happen, right? If you've lost something, let's say you've lost a deal, it's okay. You can get something back again, right? It's not like you cannot just keep crying over it. So I think that's really important.
And what about stress? I know that this kind of links into it because sometimes when you're very stressed out, you can't focus, you can't work, and so stress kind of causes more health problems, more
Yes.
physical problems. How do you battle that? Is it just this mindset, or is there other also tools that you use to battle the daily stress of being in
There
this?
are many tools. You have to have an active lifestyle. You have to go out there in the nature, because a lot of people these days are not doing that. You have to have that. The biggest advantage that we have these days, aeroplane mode. Aeroplane mode is very important.
Right.
You have to detach from what is there, and then take the baby steps again. And I think reading helps, meditation helps. It's a collective of a lot of things,
All right.
to handle stress.
I think that we're gonna kind of wrap up this episode by asking you one final question, which is Varun, if you were your 18-year-old self again, what would you tell your 18-year-old self? What like one little piece of advice would you tell your 18-year-old self? And note that to all the 18-year-olds out there, listen in on this one.
Start investing.
Okay. Aside from investing.
Okay. Very important. Yes. Good that you guys, brought that up again.
Sure.
Don't try to chase a particular educational degree just because of how much that pays. Because AI can easily replace many of the skills, right? For
Yeah.
example, you might wake up, you're like, okay, I want to do computer science because I can make 300 grand a year. There are so many computer science people out there who have also been redundant now. Why? Just because technology got in. So I think it's important to choose a path which will give you happiness, because if you're happy, that means you will work towards it. If there's some issue, you can battle it. Even if you feel something might take over, but you can always find a way around it. For example, if you are a good speaker, you might want to consider journalism rather than pursuing just a degree which will pay you more. So things like that, because what won't go away is the human factor. The human factor is really important. AI can take away the full superficial thing, but still AI will never be smarter than a human being. So choose a program wherein your human factor, you yourself can put value to it, not just by coding or things like that. So
Could you elaborate a bit upon the human factor thing? Because that's something that I read about quite a bit and I don't fully understand, honestly, because I was talking to a person about finance and things like that. And of course, AI can do a lot what a financial analyst can do in terms of a quantitative perspective. But then they mentioned that it's not going to be that way because of an element of trust. Because people need to trust
Yes.
bankers that are humans. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Security
And how
is
does that
collateral.
right? How does that translate to a larger sort of society perspective? Because people say that AI can even write music for you. It can compose music depending on your particular taste, right? So in an overarching view, how?
Kids these days, I feel that they are so engrossed in the devices where they forget about how to communicate, about how to talk really. So that communication is going lesser and lesser. You guys are good talkers. And
Thank you so much, Varun bhai.
Yes, but people really need to get back into the basic communication. I think that is something that shouldn't be gone.
And the fact that it's increasingly decreasing.
Yes.
Oh, that's interesting. And the fact that it's increasingly decreasing
That's
means that
scary, yes.
means that people who are developing the skill have a much better leverage
Definitely.
as opposed to people who are just losing it.
Definitely, because that's what you need after all. People management skills.
That's amazing. That is, I think
That's
that
good stuff. So
Varun-
guys, talk more, think less.
Yeah, because you can let the AI do the thinking, right?
Yeah, smart.
All
Yeah.
right, so with that, I think I'd just like to wrap up this episode by saying thank you, Varun, for coming on our show, spreading us some knowledge. I think what I've kind of taken away from this episode is that you should be investing early, investing in yourself in terms of your social skills, your speaking
Yes.
skills, and also just realizing that life is not just career. There is
Much
more to
beyond.
life. It's happiness, it's environment, your relationships, it's the
You have to balance.
It's the appreciation
it's
of
the
life.
balance.
And so with that, I hope that you guys balance out your life by watching one Thirsty Tales episode a day. We'd like to appreciate all of our viewers and that we are on Instagram, Spotify, TikTok, YouTube, and
In your hearts.
all right, guys, that's Thirsty Tales out.